crabby?
I wasn't kidding at the end of my Putt-Putt Saves the Review. What? During my Putt-Putt Saves the View episode... What the... For the record, I am laughing this hard because, yes, I suddenly pictured the show, The View, with the panel of hosts, and Putt-Putt there right in the middle. I don't even know who's on The View. I don't even know who's on it, but the image is still there somehow. Alright. Let's do this again. I wasn't kidding when I said in my Putt-Putt Saves the Zoo episode that I was a much bigger fan of Putt-Putt's peers, and in particular, I have a deep love for Freddi Fish. It's the franchise I go back to the most out of all of Humongous Entertainment, and Freddi Fish was also the first one that I played, so... Is it a shock it's the one I connect to the most? Although, as you see from the title, this episode I'm going to discuss some of the reasons why Freddi Fish 2 is my least favorite out of the 5 main Freddi Fish games. This is also the rough order we're going to go in for the Freddi Fish mainline games. We're going to go from my personal least favorite to my personal favorites. Now, yeah, where are the spin-off games going to take place then? I don't really know, but at least it's a better concrete plan for what I have with Putt-Putt going forward, Spy Fox when I tackle that, and Pajama Sam when I cover that. I have no idea the order for Spy Fox. Putt-Putt, I know what's next, and I know what should be after, but then I don't know when to do the rest, because there are just so many Putt-Putt games. Don't hold me to this. Part of me thinks Pajama Sam would be best tackled in reverse chronological order. But again, don't quote me on it. Also, since I mentioned Freddi Fish spin-offs, I mean the ones for the computer, so Maze Madness and Water Worries. Yeah, I don't really have access to that DS game. I've also never played it. So if you were mad I'm calling Freddi Fish 2 the worst one when the DS one exists, I've never played it, but from what I understand, yeah, that's apparently the worst one. Way more people have pointed this out than myself, but you know it's bad when your game about spelling and grammar has a grammatical error in the title.
So I've got my essay written.
We're gonna do the structured chapter format, kind of like I did with Ready to Read with Pooh and DDLC+. Setting means two things for this game, as it's the first Freddi Fish game that I'm covering. I need to talk about the setting of the franchise, which in this case is the bottom of the ocean. Okay, so maybe it's a bias, as I've always loved worlds set in the depths of the sea, but also coming back to this after 2 Putt-Putt games, I felt this beautiful sense of return. The darker color palette gels with the brighter colors when they show up, and also works perfectly for the background as a whole. This feels like it's set on the ocean floor. It has the right geometry, the right feeling, and the perfect atmosphere. Everything I would expect from the location. Now, of course, then there's the other definition of setting, which would be the specific location for this entry, Freddi and Luther's school, and also the surrounding town. If the opening made me nostalgic for the franchise, then swimming into the school reminded me of the low points of this franchise. Call me crazy, but something about this specific layout feels off to me. The school itself is only a couple of clicks long, that surrounding town is only to the north, and the rest is just kind of randomly placed, well, kelp and the like. Sure, there's a submarine, which is a nice touch, but somehow there's also a f***ing coliseum. Something just feels haphazard in the placements here. I do like the areas sometimes, but I really don't like the connective tissue on a lot of them, and that makes the areas I don't like just stand out a lot more. I really won't be able to explain this without sounding like it's just a bias or anything like that. It's just that all the other Freddi Fish games, to me, their map building and structure just works better placement-wise. things don't really connect as well as the other ones. I don't even know if I'll be able to bring it up in those other ones because it's just a thing I notice here because it doesn't work for me, where it works so well with the other ones, don't really think about it. Hell, look at the fishing hook area and look at how much empty space is here. It's only here to click on the fishing hook, and yet there's this big wide open area that you'd think would have other stuff. And not only that, the screen before it is where the Coliseum was. Do these look like the same areas? The closest I can give it positively is that these are both pretty far away from the town, which is good. I wouldn't really want a fishing hook right next to the town. That would kind of set off my scared senses. Oh no, how many of Freddi and Luther's close friends have been killed? But still, why couldn't you put it behind the cliffs, which is also pretty far away from the town? So much so, you gotta do the mud skipping minigame to get there. It would really showcase how dangerous the far off waters are if that's where the fishing hook was. Instead, it's just behind the Coliseum that's here for no reason. It may be a silly hang-up, but when something takes you out of the experience a little bit, it's something to note, even if it's just nitpicking or just a personal preference thing. It might not bother some of you, but I have to bring it up because I don't like the map of this one. Alright, fine. What's the main setup for this game? You know, the plot.
I'll race you to school, Freddi! Where are all the guppies? We're hiding!
The guppies say the school is haunted by a ghost, and that the ghost is stealing their toys.
Boo!
Ah!
Hey, that's my toy! That couldn't have been real. There's no such thing as ghosts. Whoever is scaring the guppies is just wearing a ghost costume. I've got it. Let's build a trap to catch that phony. See? We already have almost everything we need.
So these are the 5 items I was tasked in finding for this playthrough.
A life preserver, a trident, a mock-stock Mibblebach Whopper Bopper, a wheel for the baby buggy, and a rope for our trap to be complete.
You'll see on this list from the wiki, all the Humongous games have their own wikis, which is kind of great. There's a grand total of 8 items you could possibly be tasked with finding. Many of the other Humongous Entertainment games went on the idea that it was either option A or option B for the multiple puzzles. So instead here, the game selects 5 out of 8 items. While it's nice to have something a tad different, that does also mean you'll be likely to see a lot of the same items on repeat. In fact, I was genuinely shocked that I didn't have to get the cork or the pulley, and I swear I always get those 2 items every f***ing time I've gone back to this game, for a couple years by this point. Speaking of the pulley, I think we'll actually pretend for 1 second I did get that. It's something I've got to talk about. It's sold by this octopus for a grand total of 5 purple sea urchins. You may have already noticed in the footage, I have been collecting the urchins anyway. I didn't get the pulley, so why are the urchins even spawning in the first place? That's the weird thing. See, there is no purpose for them in gameplay, but they kind of have to spawn. I ended up finding out later why. If you don't have to get the pulley, you trade him 1 urchin for individual stories about the pulleys? Hey everybody, 4 in the morning, background refrigerator white here. I think the wiki is wrong, because when I looked back at the footage, I clicked on the octopus, and he sang a song about the backstory of the... No, I clicked on a pulley, and the octopus sang a song about the backstory of the pulley.
I'll bet there's a neat story behind that pulley.
The Flying Dutchman?
We hear rhyming abounds in your pulley emporium.
Just point to a pulley. I've got a whole store of them.
Maybe future stories you pay for? But I don't remember that happening ever in all the times I've played this. I think the wiki is just wrong. You really do just get the sea urchins for no reason at all if you don't need the pulley. Imagine going to a store where you can give a whole $1 to the owner to hear a story about one of the things he might sell you. The other thing about those urchins spawning in this playthrough is that 4 spawned. Remember how I said you need 5 to buy the pulley? A secret 5th urchin spawns only if you need to buy the pulley. And it's always in the exact same location too, but said location actually requires a puzzle with its own unique elements that do not spawn, just like that 5th urchin, unless you need to buy the pulley. The urchins are always mandatory to spawn in these games, and this is just the one where I don't think they did that good a job at doing so. Let's move on to an actual solution for an item I did have to get.
A mock-stock Mibblebach Whopper Bopper.
This kind of gadget is kind of a Freddi Fish staple, so it feels right that I had to get it. Alright, anyway, the seller is the Manta Ray, named Ray, who, as an adult, is very clearly meant to parody those guys who sell fake watches, which is a thing I'd be surprised to hear still existed.
A very hot item, I might add.
Luther! That's one of the things we need to build a trap. How much does a mock-stock Mibblebach Whopper Bopper go for?
This is way under my cost, but since you're such swell-looking kids, I'll let you have it for one slightly used trophy.
Okay, off with that. You want a diamond mine next? We're out here catching criminals and you're trying to get rich quick. 100 purple sea urchins says that the second we leave, he's gonna go call some old folks to tell them that their car's extended warranty is about to expire. So the slightly used trophy in question actually belongs to Freddi, who gave it to this local museum. We go to the museum, we get this slip of paper that says how to go to the guy who installed the security, so that way he can undo the security so we can get it. Although he does this right after misgendering Freddi.
Hey, you giving me the business?
Your business card, sir.
Well, so it is. You boys will be wanting the combination to the trophy case.
Excuse me, sir, but I'm not a boy. I'm a girl.
Hey, that's a coincidence. So's Mrs. Triplefin.
Get the combo, we give the trophy to Ray, and Ray gives us the thing I'm not saying again.
Nice quality. Kid, you just made the deal of the century.
There's definitely more steps here than the kinds of puzzles I was just solving for Putt-Putt in the 2 games I covered already. Makes sense. Freddi was aimed at a slightly older crowd of kids than the Putt-Putt games. Needs to be a little bit harder, although clearly not much harder. So it's not hard per se, but, I mean, as someone who was in the demographic when they first played this game, it's not like the solutions immediately jumped out to me. I'd actually say, like all the other Freddi games, it's a pretty good mix. What I can't say was done super well would be the villains of this game. So fun fact, this is the only mainline Freddi Fish game to force a repeat on the villain. I have to say force, because in 3 and 4, there were multiple options for who could be the villain of that game, because it went for a more detective kind of go-around. And there were some repeat characters there, and by some, I mean 1. But this is the time where it's forced. No matter what you do, or what the game decides, it's always the Squid Father and his shark goons, who are the villains of Freddi Fish 2, just like they were in Freddi Fish 1. I wish it hadn't been them, though. They really suck in this game. They've been really retconned in how evil of a force they were. In the first game, the Squid Father was this truly menacing presence, a ruthless and complete total monster, willing to let completely innocent fish die just for some money. As for this game, spoiler warning for the ending.
It's Freddi Fish!
And Luther. How could you two scare the poor little guppies and steal their toys?
The Squid Father told us to, 'cause he's never had any.
You should know that you can't just take things that belong to someone else.
You know, she just might have a point there, boys.
This is not even a good joke. And this isn't like a thing I'm looking back on as an adult and thinking is a weird retcon. When I was a kid and played this for the first time, I thought it was stupid then. What's this weird attempt at a tragedy for the character? If you want to suddenly add some tragedy to the Squidfather, sure, let's have some more complexity. This isn't the way to do it, though. Heck, you could even still reuse his motive from the last game. Just have him sell the kids' toys. What kind of monster would steal toys from children just to sell them back? Probably the same one who would commit genocide for petty cash. But again, if you want to make it more morally complex, fine. You didn't do it very well, though. Then, of course, you get his shark minions. Now, the sharks in the last game didn't interact with Freddi and Luther all that much. And with good reason, because you would just assume they'd eat the kids if they came across them. Now, Spongehead was dumb in the first game, but Boss was the enforcer who had a clear goal and was clearly only slightly less ruthless than the Squidfather. When it comes to this game, their bite is nothing short of completely gone. They aren't killers, they're barely even pests. If you told me these two sharks were vegetarians, I'd f***ing believe you. It's a massive downgrade and says a lot that the next appearance of Spongehead was a random enemy for the spin-off game. And it's 10 times more threatening than the 3 characters showing in this game. One more returning antagonist would be Eddie the Eel, and I'm actually not so mad about this one. I've seen some fans who think he's been downgraded, just like the other characters were. I'm actually in disagreement, so I can give the game one thing about that. My reasoning is, Eddie was always just kind of a windbag whose bark was bigger than his bite, and just stand there telling you he'll totally eat you, but never did. So he's the same character. He didn't get a retcon, it's just he's in a less menacing lair now. That's it. The only downgrade he gets other than that is that his song sucks, but can't really call that too different from the rest of the game.
I've had my breakfast. I've got my books.
I'm a manta ray who loves to trade for things.
I'll gobble you up without even a wink. Then I'll clean my dishes in the sink. When I was a school fish, even younger than you, school was 20 miles upstream and through ice too.
This wasn't normally a problem for Humongous Entertainment games either. I really can't remember another game where the entire soundtrack was this weak. Music matters. Not just stuff like background music either. The Rita Rabbit spin-off, and also Ready to Read with Pooh, those musical numbers were so good that in between writing the reviews, I actually took my footage and copied the songs by themselves so I could play them whenever I wanted. You're not gonna catch me doing that here.
Life on the sea is fun galore, 'cause you don't have to wash or wax the ocean floor. Hey, nanny, nanny, and a hot cha-cha.
First off, we have the chalkboard, which many of you might not even count as a minigame, but I have to because I ended up messing around with it for way longer than I thought I was going to. There's a good selection of colors. The pre-made stamps, or designs, whatever you want to call them, they got a nice variety. You can also change the size from small to large, and that's just the kind of thing they never needed to do, and they did. No complaints. It's probably the best thing to do in the school. Now, if you want to count this as a minigame, I gotta go into a quick spoiler for this one. But you know how I had to get a trident? You get that trident in the Coliseum through this sliding puzzle that is on the ceiling. Here's the funny thing though, and why I have to include it in the minigame section. You don't have to solve the puzzle to get the trident, you just have to get the tile just above the trident to be an empty slot. That's it. You don't have to solve the puzzle at all. That is a thing you can do for fun if you want to. I don't think sliding puzzles are all that fun, so sorry, got no footage of me finishing it. because I didn't do it. This, of course, a movie theater, because there's always these fun little cutscene things in the Freddi Fish games. But now for the real minigame.
It's Crab Invaders!
Which is this Space Invaders ripoff, where Luther murders a bunch of crabs, just like with the chalkboard. I kind of forgot I was recording and just had genuine fun. To go back to the Putt-Putt minigames from the ones I've already covered, they boiled down to scoring 2 hockey goals and then me giving up because I was bored. And this marble pinball thing, where the footage ended up in the end credits because I couldn't think of anything to say. But Crab Invaders is a clone of a very fun arcade game and knows exactly why that formula works. There's even a shocking amount of polish in this thing. Luther is spitting to kill these crabs, but gravity is in effect. Look, see? I missed the crab because I was too early, but then, on the rebound, it managed to still hit. You can also get the spit to land on Luther as well if you don't move out of the way. Speaking of landing on Luther, the crabs can land on him as well, which will cause him to get dunked into the water, and it is a hard tradition for me to make sure the last crab always does that. Yeah, forget catching the ghosts. This is the real game. The weakest mainline Freddi Fish game is still a mainline Freddi Fish game. Something I can come back to for charm alone and that I really do have fun with. The mystery and the characters don't sell me on this one, but the minigames are a blast. And the art style is just so beautifully good that it's easy to forget some of the game's flaws sometimes. And just a reminder before you get mad, I did say worst mainline game. I don't know if the DS game is worse, other than what I've heard. And when it comes to whether or not this is better than Maze Madness or Water Worries, I'll keep that in mind, because we'll find out when we find out. Although I will say, it's less weird than whatever the f*** this was. I discovered this a good decade or so ago, and I still have no idea what on earth this is. Why are they in CG? Why are they real kids? Is this a dance craze I never heard about? What language is this in? I never even found that out. Which kind of shows my hand here that I haven't done too much research. But then again, you get my point, right? What on earth happened here?
I've had my breakfast.
I've got my books.
Comb my pins.
Check out my looks.
Ready for learning.